the leader. About a 4-second lead at this point, although Schumacher appears to be closing in. I don't think it's 4 seconds anymore. And look at the gap. No shot whatsoever of Jean Alesi. Let me see, 3.9 seconds.
These guys, Williams certainly had more engine power as well. They were using the V10, the RS6 67-degree V10. And as you said at the top of the show, Bob, a lot of different engine variations, the V10, the V12 and Ferrari, and our little Cosworth V8. But what we had was very good torque, which meant that we had great punch out of the slow corners, something that really, Renault had great horsepower, but it was at the top end of the range, and we were able to pull back all the while around this course because we just could close up coming out of the corners.
Well, there's your man just done the fastest lap of the race, so obviously making inroads into Senna's lead. That's Oliver Beretta and Bertrand Gachot out of the race.
Beretta would go on to star in sports cars. Well, Bertrand Gachot trying to piece his career back together after that legal proceeding in London that took him out of the race car at Jordan and opened the door for young Michael Schumacher.
Yeah, that's Frenchling and Wendlinger in the Sauber.
That little Pacific car, of course, that had one of the Ilmor engines in. Now synonymous really with Mercedes Ilmor that are powering McLaren.
Onto the long straightaway they go. There's a look at your top six. We'll be back in a moment to F1 Decade. Welcome back to the 1994 Brazilian Formula One Grand Prix here on F1 Decade, and you're watching the master, Ayrton Senna of Brazil, in the Williams Renault, leading one of the last times we would see him do so in his glittering career.
Just coming up to lap David Brabham in the Simtek. Simtek's first race, and look at that, right behind Senna now, relatively speaking, is Michael Schumacher, picking up ground big time.
David Brabham, one of the three racing sons of the former three-time world champion, Sir Jack Brabham. He had a difficult road in Formula One, and not a long one.
And still racing over here in the States very successfully. Races at Le Mans every year, and still hanging right in there. Doesn't look as young as he did at this race.
Now there's Mika Hakkinen.
Yeah.
Out in the Peugeot. The debut for the Peugeot V10 with McLaren, and that too was a rather unhappy relationship for a short time.
Yeah, they had a horrible time together. Peugeot engine beset with all kinds of mechanical problems, and unfortunately really didn't come off for them at all.
The chef d'équipe with the Peugeot engine was Jean-Pierre Jabouille, who was my teammate at Le Mans. Here comes the second car with Martin Brundle driving.
Now we're seeing a little piece of F1 history being made right here. This is the first refueling pit stop since the procedure for refueling this race, mid-race, was banned in 1983. So Martin Brundle taking that dubious honour. And I tell you, there was a lot of relief in the pit lane to see somebody pull off a successul pit stop.
They're going out there on brand new tyres. You can see the sticker tyres there.
Oh, look at Schumacher slashing down the inside of that bumper.
So Senna starting to feel the pressure now. You can see him in the mirror. He knows he's coming. And of course, in the 26-car field, a lot more traffic to handle than there is today with only 20 cars.
Spin here for Heinz-Harald Frentzen in the Sauber. A brief one.
And Jean Alesi in the sole remaining Ferrari.
Listen to the revs on that V12.
Oh, just a beautiful howling wail from that V12 engine. You're right, Bob. Fantastic note out of that.
That was a guy who deserved better than he got in Formula One. One career win for Jean Alesi. Check the gap. It was once 4 seconds. It is now 8/10. And Michael Schumacher is right there with the race leader.
And again, here we're coming to where Steve was saying it's good out of these tight corners. Got more torque, a lot of punch, and certainly not letting Senna get away from him. This, of course, is where the Ferrari is particularly bad through those corners.
Very big. A little bit of understeer there from Schumacher, is in the wake of the Williams, very big slab-sided barge board. Look at these cars now in comparison to what we've got today. It's very early days for barge board aerodynamic technology, and there's a lot of refinement going on from then to now.
Edging downhill through what are now known as the Senna S's.
Now really chucking in the draft there. Gap now down to just over half a second. Obviously, though, this is the sort of gap where the slightest mistake on Schumacher's part and the gap would go back to 4 or 5 seconds. The slightest mistake on Senna's part and Schumacher will be through.
You see how there's very few skid sparks coming out from underneath the car now as the fuel load begins to lift off and the suspension rises a little bit and the car goes light.
Young Christian Fittipaldi in the footwork having engine problems. Moves aside for the race leaders. We'll be back with more from Interlagos at Sao Paulo. Pit stops coming up.
Welcome back. We're on lap 22 of the 1994 Brazilian Grand Prix and we are getting ready for pit stops. Now, Benetton knew with Ross Brawn's experience from sports cars the advantage that getting a quick pit stop would make if we could work harder, work quicker, and turn the car around quicker than Williams. We knew we could get past Senna and take the lead of the race right now. Senna is in to his pit stop. You're watching the Benetton mechanics working on Schumacher's B194. A lot of pressure on. We're both refueling for the first time, and we are away. And look, we are out ahead of the Williams. It had paid off. All that winter work had paid off. And I'll tell you what, there was hours of work gone into perfecting that procedure.
Well, and it certainly worked. Your pit stop was just about a second quicker than the Williams stop, which, of course, gave you the vital lead.
As I said, that experience came from Ross Brawn in his sports car days when they were used to refueling, working out pit stop strategies with fuel, the weight penalty by carrying the extra fuel. So it all worked out very well. We were very fortunate to have Ross Brawn as technical director. It really caught Williams on the hop, that refueling procedure for the first few races.
Now that Benetton behind Senna's Williams is Jos Verstappen in his Formula One debut. Schumacher's teammate. He is a lap down, but as you can see, right on the pace with the Williams as Senna comes up to speed.
Jos Verstappen, who is out of a ride this year, 2004, much to his regret. Was hoping to drive the Jordan, but as you can see, putting up a very good display here in the Benetton.
Well, he was thrown in at the deep end because of Leto's accident, and he settled into the team very quickly.
Incorrect graphic there. Senna is not leading. Schumacher is. 22 laps complete, setting up a 2 pit stop strategy for Senna and Schumacher. Interesting, if Verstappen seems to be running lower to the ground. Senna should be heavier with fuel, but you didn't see the sparks from under the Williams.
And as before the pit stop, Michael Schumacher, now he's in front, seems to be able to pull away a little bit from Ayrton Senna. Senna, he'd pulled up from a 4 or 5 second deficit, caught him up.
Mark Blundell climbing out of the Tyrrell.
Oh, body work ripped straight off the engine cover. Just look on, side pod gone, look, radiator exposed, smoking engine.
That's the result of a big one. Oh, there's the engine cover on the track.
Whoa, 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 whoa.
Senna
it's everywhere. That's a dangerous situation.
Yeah. It's dangerous because that carbon fiber just breaks into shards, very like glass, really, very sharp, and it takes very little of that carbon fiber to cut into the rubber and into the carcass of the tyre. You want to get that carbon removed off the track very quickly. The last thing you want is for somebody to run over the slightest bit of carbon debris. Very dangerous.
Out in front of the race leader Schumacher now, the red and white McLaren of Martin Brundle, who was a teammate of Michael Schumacher's previously.
Yeah, they were together in 92, teammates in 92, and Brundle really wanted this McLaren drive. Of course, they're one of the greatest teams around, but he managed to get in, of course, but it just happened to be
the wrong year.
The wrong year.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Badly balks his former teammate right there.
There you see that slashing way that Michael Schumacher goes through traffic, already his trademark. Only got 38 races under his belt at this stage.
There's a look at the new running order. Damon Hill up to third. The Ferrari of Jean Alesi now fourth. We'll be back in a moment. Welcome back to the 94 Brazilian Grand Prix here on F1 Decade. Bob Varsha along with Steve Matchett and David Hobbs. This is the battle for fifth place. Carl Wendlinger and Rubens Barrichello. Sauber against Jordan.
Carl Wendlinger just getting the better on there as they go into the S's. Rubens Barrichello not giving up. 21 years old. This is his 17th race at the time.
McLaren kind of slewing into view.
Yeah,
that's Martin
smoke
Brundle
coming out the back of that again.
And Rubens Barrichello in the colors of the South African National Oil Company that sponsored Eddie Jordan's team early in their career.
This is Jordan's, fourth year in Formula One after coming into Formula One from F3000. And they were looking like becoming a very strong team at this time.
Mm-hmm.